Everyone, and welcome to this special event that we have hosted today. And we're so thrilled and excited to have Dr. Greger as our special guest speaker today. I wanted to remind you that I'm Liz Antea. I'm co-chair along with Debbie Zimmerman of Polk Wellness Professionals. And our mission is to promote wellness leadership and a culture of health in Polk County. So we're thrilled to be able to bring you this event today. Dr. Michael Greger is a physician, a speaker, an author, and an educator. He is a founding member and fellow of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, a physician, New York Times bestselling author, and internationally recognized speaker on nutrition, food safety, and public health issues. Dr. Greger has lectured at the Conference on World Affairs, testified before Congress, and was invited as an expert witness in the defense of Oprah Winfrey in the infamous meat defamation trial. In 2017, Dr. Greger was honored with the ACLM Lifestyle Medicine Trailblazer Award. Dr. Greger is a graduate of Cornell University School of Agriculture and Tufts University School of Medicine. He has videos on more than 2,000 health topics freely available at nutritionfacts.org, with new videos and articles uploaded every day. All proceeds he receives from his books, DVDs, and speaking engagements are all donated to charity. All of Dr. Greger's books, including How Not to Die Cookbook, How Not to Diet, and his latest book, How to Survive a Pandemic, have all become instant New York Times bestsellers. And we're thrilled to be able to have him. I'd like to introduce one of our wonderful sponsors, Rich Wills of Fitness.
Hi, I'm Rich, and I'm just a running store owner. And we're happy to be a part of this series. And it's particularly interesting to me because over the last year and a half, I've moved to a more plant-based diet, and it's had a profound impact on me. So I'm happy to be a part of this to try and share this with as many of our customers and as much of our community with you as possible too.
Awesome. I think it's time that we meet Dr. Michael Greger.
We'd also like to thank one of our very special title sponsors, Veracity EBMS, and they're an industry leader in health risk management and third-party administration of self-funded health plans nationwide. Their strategies are transforming the health and well-being of individuals and organizations.
Perfect. Now let's meet Dr. Greger.
Hey! There he is!
There he is. Welcome, Dr. Greger. How are you?
I am doing great. How's the sound on your end?
It sounds great to us.
Fantastic. Sorry, I am 2 minutes late. Just got off another interview.
Well, Dr. Greger, we are going to be recording this, of course. We're recording it now.
Let's do it.
And we're going to be showing this in a public event a little bit later on.
Great.
So we've already introduced you, so we appreciate you being here. And we are excited to say that we'll be sending $2,000 your way.
Oh, thank you.
nutritionfacts.org, so you can keep informing us busy people on how to eat.
Let's do it.
I'm Debbie Zimmerman, and Liz Antea, also Rich Wills, and Rich is one of our sponsors, and he's going to start with the first question, okay?
Let's do it.
Rich?
Am I ready to go? Okay.
Yep.
Dr. Greger, hey, my name's Rich Wills. I'm the owner of Fitness, our local running store. And I've had a habit these last few months of telling all of our customers that the very best thing they can do for their mind, body, and soul and their immune system is to get outside and run or walk regularly.
I love it.
With moderate activity level. And so my question to you is, can you speak to any of the science behind the improvements to immune system that aerobic exercise and being outdoors plays?
Yeah, really remarkable. Literally within minutes of running around, you can detect, you get this expulsion of white blood cells from your bone marrow into your bloodstream. This is kind of your first line of defense to kind of mount a defense against any intruders. Look at older women, for example, and you look at their likelihood of coming down with a respiratory infection during flu season, significantly decreased in those who are more active. And so, yeah, it's critically important and going outside, very low risk in terms of pandemic standpoint. Getting fresh air, getting a little vitamin D, and movement is a great way. Stress management, sleep hygiene, all down the list of multi-pronged benefits, not only to your immune system, but overall health from getting active. I'm excited that you're supporting this initiative.
Yeah, thank you. It means a lot to me.
We're thrilled to have him, and he's bought a lot of your books to sell at his store.
Yes.
Right.
Hey, Liz, you have a last minute question that came in. Why don't you address that before we begin?
Sure. So a friend of mine has a husband who takes Synthroid for his thyroid, and she is most recently said I inspired her, but she and her husband both went plant-based about 6 weeks ago. So she wonders if he's going to be able to get off that sort of medication with this sort of diet.
So it depends on the cause. So presumably it's an autoimmune thyroiditis that caused hypothyroidism. That's the number one cause. And for that, your thyroid gland just gets scarred up, and you need to take this thyroid replacement hormone therapy called Synthroid for the rest of your life. But there are other causes of hypothyroidism that are amenable to diet. So for example, having iodine deficiency can cause hypothyroidism, underactive thyroid gland, because your thyroid needs iodine atoms to actually create these thyroid hormones. And that, of course, the answer to that is you don't need to take extra thyroid hormones, you just need to get a sufficient iodine intake. So it really depends on what it is. So we should, at all possible, treat the cause. And if you do, and if it indeed is this autoimmune thyroiditis, or what's called Hashimoto syndrome, then and you say, well, the thyroid gland's all scarred up, got to be on this, whatever. You still have to eat healthy, because autoimmune conditions tend to kind of clump together. So those who have hypothyroidism are more likely to have other autoimmune, something like type 1 diabetes, and they all kind of cluster together, such that it's even more important to eat an anti-inflammatory diet to prevent future problems.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Well, Dr. Greger, we're all in this COVID together. And can you tell us how to boost our immune system to fight off the germs, colds, and viruses? I know that's a big subject.
Well, first of all, look, let's consider the underlying risk factors for COVID-19 severity and death. Obesity, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and high blood pressure. Every single one of those can be prevented, arrested, and reversed with a healthy enough plant-based diet and lifestyle, right? I mean, excess body fat alone. I mean, you don't have to be obese. Just being overweight puts you at risk. So having a BMI of 28, which is like, 175 pounds of the average American height, puts you at nearly 6 times the odds of suffering a severe COVID-19 course. That's a BMI of 28. The average BMI in the United States, 29. So even being skinnier than your average American can still leave you with so much excess body fat that it can nearly 6 times increase your odds of a severe COVID-19 course. So that's why critically we should use this time to take care of ourselves, not only to prevent chronic disease down the line, but infectious disease threats right now. But in terms of individual foods, beyond just eliminating these predisposing underlying conditions, there are these amazing studies showing, simple foods can boost your immune system, like, randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trials showing that, broccoli sprouts, for example, can reduce viral loads for influenza, decrease virus-induced inflammation, and boost our antiviral natural killer cell activity. But, and look, all just from eating broccoli, but this isn't the flu, right? Unlike other common viruses, coronaviruses have not been shown to cause more severe disease in immunosuppressed patients. Why? Because it's our own immune response that appears to be the main driver of lung tissue damage during infection. Starting around the 2nd week of symptoms, the virus can trigger what's called a cytokine storm. It's like an autoimmune reaction where your body overreacts, and then it's hacking the coronavirus. Your lungs can get caught in the crossfire. And then, burning down the village in order to save it, we may not survive the process. So that's why I certainly support general common sense advice to stay healthy during the crisis, getting sufficient sleep, keeping active, reducing stress, staying connected, albeit remotely, with friends and family, and eating a healthy diet. But I don't think we should go out of our way to take specific supplements or eat specific foods to boost elements for our immune system until we know more about this virus.
Awesome.
All right, very good. So this is a fairly simple question, but it gets asked a lot. What is the best way, you think, to get started on a plant-based diet?
Oh, well, I mean, there's, as far as I'm concerned, we should just jump all in and basically try it as a free sample. So there's some wonderful resources out there, like the 21-day Kickstart program. There's an organization.
I did that.
All right, the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine starts at the 1st of every month. It's done in a bunch of different languages. Hundreds of thousands of people have done it. You do it kind of a social media group, and you get daily tips and recipes and things. It should have that support in hopes that after 3 weeks, you feel so good. More energy, better digestion, better sleep, less painful periods, whatever it is, such that you have that internal motivation to stick with it. So no longer is this just some doctor kind of waving their finger in your face, but you actually feel different. And look, if you can do it before and after lab work, you can see kind of, the objective, what's happening inside your bloodstream when you're starting to eat healthier. And then even if you don't stick on the diet, you at least know in the back of your mind that it's doable, you felt better. If doctors ever want to put you on blood pressure meds or cholesterol lowering meds, you know that you have control and you can do it yourself. But you don't know how good you're gonna feel until you give it a try.
Agreed. Thank you.
Dr. Greger, you talked one time about the second meal effect. Is that harmful or beneficial to us?
Oh, it's so cool. So the second meal effect is beneficial. This was originally called the lentil effect because it was originally showed on lentil, but it's found that all legumes like chickpeas and other beans, split peas, chickpeas, and lentils can do it. And so we've known that legumes, for example, are low glycemic foods, low glycemic impact foods, meaning that even though they contain a lot of starch, they don't cause a blood sugar spike that would cause you to release triglycerides or have any adverse effects. But what was fascinating is that you eat beans for breakfast, for example, like the Brits do, and not only do you have lower blood sugars for breakfast, but lower blood sugars at lunch 6 hours later, even though you don't eat beans at the lunch. Having beans for breakfast somehow affected your metabolism 6 hours later. So that was the lentil effect, the second meal effect. And now we even realized that you eat, this was a study done with brown beans, you eat brown beans for supper and it can affect your blood sugars at lunch the next day. So that's like the third meal effect. So this is like over 12 hours later. And it said, wait a second, what is going on? And what's happening is this is when your good gut bacteria can start to have, are munching on that same bean burrito you had the night before and producing all these wonderful compounds, these short chain fatty acids like butyrate, that are then absorbed from the intestinal lining into our bloodstream, circulate throughout our bodies, cross the blood-brain barrier, have all sorts of beneficial effects throughout the body. They're anti-inflammatory, boost your immune function, etc., and can help one lose weight, decrease appetite, and decrease blood sugar excursions. And so that's why, and you can imagine, well, boy, if you ate, these legumes regularly, how you can continue to kind of protect yourself for hours in the future. You have this kind of rolling advantage should all of a sudden you get stuck someplace and eat something that's not as healthy.
I went white beans in my oatmeal. And it was
oh, fantastic. Yes. You just smush them in. You don't even know they're there.
I didn't smush them, so it didn't look very good, but it tasted all right.
Oh, yeah. See, so yeah. Look, yeah, exactly. Whatever it takes.
Yeah.
You smush them in for kids. Then the kid then won't notice it. But yeah.
Exactly. So for those people who are able to kind of do the cold turkey, especially coming off of the sad standard American diet of French fries, cheeseburgers, etc., can you explain the detox period that they would go through when they leave that sad diet?
Well, I mean, the most critical piece is the changing of your palate. And so when you have people eating these hyper salty, hyper fatty, hyper sweet diets, when all of a sudden you start eating healthy, normal, natural food, it takes a while for your taste buds to adjust. Such that, you put someone on a low sodium diet and all of a sudden everything tastes like cardboard. And you say, wait a second, there's no way I could live my whole life like this. Like, yeah, I don't want to die from a stroke. But at the same time, it's like I'm deriving no pleasure from food anymore. And so then they go back and eating go back to the French fries. But what they don't realize is, no, that's just a temporary, and that you actually have this kind of taste thermostat that readjusts. And you can show this experimentally. You have people salt soup to taste, then put them on a low salt diet. And first everything doesn't taste good, but then eventually they prefer lower salt soup. You give them that same bowl of soup, it's too salty, how they originally liked it. They actually prefer less salt soup. So your palate adapts such that you can achieve the best of both worlds. All of a sudden, natural, normal, healthy foods taste delicious. So corn on the cob, without butter, without salt, tastes amazing. I mean, just like a sweet potato with a little cinnamon or something, craveably delicious. And people think you're like some aesthetic monk, like you're depriving yourself. But no. It tastes delicious. It actually tastes good. So you have the best of both worlds. Tastes great, and you get to live longer. That's what plant-based eating is all about. But there is that transitional period where you're just like, there's no way I can eat like this, because things just don't. The ripest peach in the world would taste sour after a bowl of Fruit Loops, right? We have these taste engineers in the processed food industry that just design these foods to hook into your evolutionary triggers, and we really have to pull ourselves away from that hyper stimulating food until then our bodies can adjust, and then it tastes just as good as it did before, but you get the health benefits as well.
Hyper stimulating and addictive foods, right?
Well, I mean, that's part of it, is that, right, when you stop eating them, that you have these cravings that can drive you back against your better judgment. But that's what the whole, they're engineered so you can't have just one. I mean, that's what they're trying to do. And it's great for the shareholders.
Yeah.
But it's just, we have a childhood obesity epidemic, not to mention all the other chronic diseases.
We haven't even mentioned, but we were going to make sure you knew and understood that where we live, Lakeland, Polk County, is one of the sickest counties, metropolitan areas in the entire United States.
Yikes.
We have almost 70% overweight and obese.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
I'm not proud of that.
What's the problem? Well, yeah. Why aren't you guys? Come on.
I know. Well, that's why we're so excited to have you here, but maybe next year.
Oh, I wanted to be there so bad. All right, well.
I need to hear your message.
I will be back in person as soon as I possibly can.
Okay, we're going to hold you to that.
Yeah, I was looking forward to it.
So, Dr. Greger, the last question dealt with detox. And a lot of people think that they need to go on these fasts to detox their body. How do you get rid of the bad chemicals in your body?
Oh, well, a lot of these persistent pollutants like dioxins, PCBs are fat soluble, so they're actually stored in your fat stores. And so the way to get rid of them is to lose weight. So simply losing weight can release these. The problem is with weight cycling. If you then, if your weight goes up and down, it could leave you with with higher levels in the rest of your bloodstream. So ideally, we should go on a healthy diet, eat healthy foods, lose whatever weight, and that's the way to detox. Now, and when it comes to lead, that's mostly stuck in your skeleton. That's It's not going anywhere. But what's stuck in your fat stores, we can dissolve away.
So is that along the same lines, the question, is there a link between obesity and pesticides?
Oh, well, I mean, some of the, the organochlorine pesticides like DDT and this metabolite DBDE are indeed stored in your fat stores. But in terms of pesticides contributing to obesity, there are a number of obesogenic chemicals, obesity generating or obesity inducing chemicals. But primarily it's these organotin compounds, which are used as fouling chemicals on basically boats to prevent barnacles. So they used to cover boats with this stuff. Unfortunately, it worked great for barnacles, but unfortunately, these organotin compounds, aquatic food chain, people eat a lot of seafood, get high levels, and that actually very clearly facilitates body fat accumulation. But that, and there's some plastics chemicals that can increase fat storage, but yeah, but I don't think, but not pesticides.
Awesome. Do you feel organic meats, such as those raised without hormones, chemicals, or free range, are superior to the feedlot livestock?
Well, I mean, from an animal welfare standpoint, perhaps, but from a human health standpoint, if you actually look at the whole point of using pesticide free feed crops is to decrease the levels of these toxins within the bodies of animals. When you actually do retail level testing of organic versus conventional products, you don't see any difference in terms of overall pollutant levels. And so really the only way to reduce one's contaminant levels is to eat lower on the food chain, ideally mostly from the lowest level of the food chain, plants. Even pesticide-laden plants would have a less pesticide burden of some of these persistent pollutants than organic meat, because it just bioaccumulates up the food chain.
Okay.
So in your book, How Not to Diet, you discuss the harmful effects of drinking diet sodas. Can you please explain how artificial sweeteners in diet sodas can lead to obesity?
Yeah, it's really fascinating. So now some artificial sweeteners have negative effects on their own. So for example, sucralose, Splenda actually negatively affects your microbiome, aspartame has other effects, but even safe, harmless non-caloric sweeteners like monk fruit can have negative effects, and it's because it disrupts this connection that your brain establishes between sweetness and the kind of insulin reaction that's needed. There's when you bite into an apple and your brain tastes sweetness on your tongue, the body, through millions of years of evolution, says, oh, I know what sweetness means. Sweetness means there's some kind of sugar in there, so I'm going to ready my body to the sugar that I know is coming. You haven't even swallowed yet, and your body actually starts releasing insulin to deal with the sugar it knows it's coming. And it knows this much sweetness means this much insulin release. It's not just insulin, but other compounds that are released, readying to take care of this load. But the problem is when you eat non-caloric sweeteners, so all of a sudden you eat some stevia or something, and your body's like, oh, I know what sweetness is. Sweetness means this much sugar, and so releases this much insulin, everything to deal with sugar, and sugar never arrives. So your body just overshot itself. It can drive your blood sugars actually too low, lower than they were fasting, and then your body thinks, oh my God, I'm in a famine or something, and spits triglycerides as fat into your blood, and have all these negative adverse effects, such that then when your thermostat is off, when all of a sudden your body says, whoa, I totally overreacted with that. Here I thought this much sweetness required this much insulin. Actually, you can have a huge amount of sweetness. There's actually not a lot of sugars in there at all. And so your body readjusts down. But then next meal, when instead of stevia, you just eat, regular food, and your body totally undershoots it because it thinks, wait a second, this much sweetness, I thought only meant this much insulin, but all of a sudden I just drank some regular soda, and now I'm just totally off the charts because I screwed up my system before. So you actually have a higher blood sugars overall eating artificial sweeteners for breakfast, for example, compared to sugar. When you average them over the day, you actually have more blood sugar exposure when skipping the sugar than if you actually just ate the sugar. And of course, best is not to eat the sugar or the non-caloric sweeteners. If you want your sweet fix, it's summertime. Get some watermelon, eat some fresh fruit or sweet potatoes. So all sorts of wonderful, healthy, health-promoting sweet foods out there.
Are you saying stevia is not a good choice?
Stevia is not, well, so stevia is not a good choice in terms of stevia itself.
Yeah.
It can be considered harmless itself if you stay under a few kind of stevia sweetened beverages a day worth, according to the World Health Organization. But just that mismatch between sweetness and actually caloric intake kind of affects that thermostat such that when you have a next meal, the next snack, your body cannot regulate your blood sugars as well. And that's why we think that diet soda consumption is associated with increased risk of a number of diseases. And this is not just from aspartame and Splenda, these synthetic sweeteners, but also you get the same kind of blood sugar mismatches with stevia and monk fruit.
Well, that's bad news for me.
Well, I just bought the stevia and monk fruit, so I'm double bad there.
Guess I'll have to make some changes.
Yeah.
I just eat real sugar and real pies, so I guess I'm in the lead here, huh?
How about a sugar-free pie?
Ah, maybe someday I'll get there.
Well, the berries. I mean, God, berries are so sweet. Wow.
Yeah.
Peaches.
So let's get into COVID. You just wrote a great book, How to Survive. Not how to die from a pandemic, how to survive a pandemic. And it's been very timely, of course. But you write that COVID-19 is on the main stage right now. And a bird virus like H5N1 virus could be waiting in the proverbial wings. Could you briefly retell the story of the H5N1 bird flu and the dangers that could be headed for us in the future?
Yes, waiting in the wings of chickens, indeed. I mean, as devastating as COVID-19 has been, it may just be a dress rehearsal. So according to the CDC, the leading candidate for the next pandemic virus after COVID-19 is a bird flu virus named as H7N9, which has overtaken H5N1, which is 100 times deadlier than COVID-19. So instead of a 0.4% case fatality rate, 1 in 250 people dying, it's a 40% fatality rate. I mean, the last time a bird flu virus jumped humans and triggered a pandemic directly, it triggered the deadliest plague in human history, the 1918 pandemic, which killed 50 million people, and that had a 2% death rate. Right? What if we had a virus infecting billions where death was closer to a flip of a coin? But the good news is there's something we can do about it. Just like eliminating the exotic animal trade and live animal markets may go a long way towards preventing the next coronavirus pandemic. Reforming the way we raise domestic animals for food may help forestall the next killer flu.
Wow.
Okay, so kind of along those lines, a Harvard writer once said, those who do not learn history are doomed to repeat it. Are these lessons from the 1918 bird flu pandemic, are there lessons that we can learn from that pandemic that we can learn in dealing with the COVID-19 surges and second wave?
Yeah, so in 1918, the overcrowded, stressful, crowded conditions in the trenches of World War I, believed to have what led to the extreme virulence of this virus. Normally, there's a cap on how deadly viruses can get, because if a virus strikes you down too quickly, then it may not spread as well, right? It wants you out there spreading the virus before it goes down with the ship. But when you have transmission from a mobilized host, when the virus can hit you like a 2x4 and still transmit to the next just because you're so crowded together, there's really kind of no limit to how virulent these viruses can get. That's what we had in World War I. And now we have the same kind of trench warfare conditions today in every industrial egg operation, every industrial chicken shed, where, you know, it's crowded, confined, stressed, but by the billions, not just millions. And so, you know, in this new age of emerging diseases, we now have billions of feathered and curly-tailed test tubes for viruses to, you know, mutate and incubate within billions more spins at pandemic roulette. We overcrowd thousands of these animals. These cramped, filthy football field-sized sheds to lie beak to beak or snout to snout atop their own waste. It's just a breeding ground for disease. The overcrowding, the sheer numbers, the stress crippling their immune systems, the ammonia from the decomposing waste burning their lungs, lack of fresh air, lack of sunlight. You put all these factors together, what you really have is kind of this perfect storm environment for these so-called super strains of influenza. You know, the bottom line is that we should not be risking the lives of millions of people for the sake of cheaper chicken.
Wow.
Agreed.
The next question I think that we have is very similar, and I think you've addressed it already. But regarding the pandemic, what can we do to prevent the next one? You know, we're in Florida, we are always ready for the big storm. And
Right.
I heard you earlier today saying that this is a Hurricane 1, and the big one coming is a 5. So what can we do to stop this?
Yeah, and so, I mean, that's just not a hurricane parallel. I mean, that's their CDC has a pandemic severity index, which indeed which was based on the hurricane severity index. And so right now, currently, we are facing what's technically a category 2 pandemic with COVID-19. But 1918 was a category 5, and we have viruses circulating now among these chicken populations, which could be even worse. And so, you down in Florida know more than others about the importance of being prepared. We may be one bushmeat meal away from the next HIV, one pangolin plate away from the next coronavirus, and one factory farm away from the next deadly flu. But along with human culpability comes hope. I mean, if changes in human behavior can cause new plagues, well then, changes in human behavior may prevent them in the future. We really just have to accelerate this transmission away from animal agriculture to plant-based meats, plant-based milks, plant-based egg products. Already, there's really hopeful signs on the horizon. There are major meat producers right now: Tyson, Purdue, Smithfield, Hormel, JBS. Some of the biggest meat packers in the world have come out with these entirely plant-based lines of meatballs and chicken nuggets. I mean, now from a human health standpoint, it'd be better if we just had some, beans, some whole foods. But these are certainly healthier from a human health standpoint. But from a pandemic risk standpoint, zero risk. And so these are helpful signs. Look what happened in the dairy case, right? The constellation of new consumer choices, and all of a sudden major dairies are declaring bankruptcy. And similar things are now happening in the meat case. And so we can use our kind of consumer choices to drive the industry in that direction. These meat companies are reimagining themselves as just protein companies. And it's a lot easier to give you, a pea protein burger than a beef burger, because there's so many fewer steps. It's more reliable supply chain. They make more money. I mean, it's kind of a win-win from all around, and critically important now, not only with the climate crisis, but with the risk of these pandemic threats in the future.
Not only that, but there's been a surge in beef and dairy prices of late. So potentially that could also push more people to consume.
Let's do it. Yeah, that could be a small little silver lining there. Unfortunately, I have another interview I got to run off to.
Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Greger. We so appreciate it, and we just love the time we spent with you, and we do hope we get a chance to be able to have you here and host you in our beautiful city of Lakeland.
I can't wait. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much.
Bye. Take care. Yep, right on time.
Rich, we thank you for being a sponsor, and hold on, everyone. I'm stopping the recording. Oh, shoot. Stop.